Hello friends, and welcome to a new session with edupediaworld.com, your favorite portal for online education. Continuing with measures of dispersion, in the previous session we had started with standard deviation. We had seen what standard deviation is, we had seen its various forms of the formula, and understood their working by taking up a simple problem based on the raw data. This session we shall take up other numerical problems based on the frequency table and see the working of the various forms of the formula. To recall, let's see what the formula weigh. In the simplest form, standard deviation, for which the symbol is the Greek letter sigma, is the summation of the square of the deviation over n and then the positive root of that. This was the case when we had raw data. In case of frequencies, we simply take summation xi minus x bar square and multiply that with fi and then divide it by n and take the positive root when we have frequency distribution. Okay. Now when we square these forms we get variance. So the square of this summation fi xi minus x bar square over n would be called as the variance. When we worked out, we had another set of formula which was simply, to remember, I had told you that it is simply the mean of squares minus square of mean. Mean of square means it was summation xi square over n minus summation xi by n square. Okay. In case if we have frequency distribution, this would become summation fi into xi square over n minus summation fi xi by n square and then the positive square root in case if it is the standard deviation, and in case if it is variance it would simply be summation fi xi square by n minus summation fi xi by n the whole square without taking the root. And what about the coefficient value? The coefficient value, which was called as coefficient of variation, is simply the standard deviation value divided by the arithmetic mean into 100. So these were the various forms of formula we had seen in the previous session, and we had seen the working of raw data in both the cases. Today we shall take up the case of frequency distribution. We shall use both these formula and then subsequently find the variance and the coefficient of variation. Alright, so here we have a set of data with the frequency values given. To use the first formula, I need to first find the standard the arithmetic mean, for which I need to take some x into f. So this is x multiplied by f for all the cells. Let me drag it down to, so here we have this is x into f. Then I need to take the sum of this, sum of x into f, is this, and also we need to take the sum of the frequency in order to get the arithmetic mean. The sum of the frequency is 76, therefore to find the arithmetic mean it will be the value here divided by the value here. So the arithmetic mean is 14. Next I need to take the deviation from the actual mean, which would be x minus the arithmetic mean. This is 10 minus the arithmetic mean here is 14. So it's minus 4. Next one would be minus 3, 2, 1, 0 and so on. And then I need to square them. So it would be x minus arithmetic mean raised to the power 2. That is, this value raised to the power 2 will be the square of the deviations. Drag it down to all the cells here, and then we need to find the product of this value and the frequency. So it would be the frequency multiplied by this. So here it's simply this value multiplied by the frequency okay. So we have the sum of all the of course we need to find the sum of all of these. So the sum is 300, and then to get the standard deviation, to find the standard deviation, we will have to divide this value by the sum of the frequency and take the square root. So here let me first find the variance. Variance is this value divided by the sum of the frequency, which happens to be 3.947, approximately 3.95, and then we take the positive square root of this quantity, and that's our standard deviation. To find the coefficient of variation, it will be this value multiplied by 100 and divided by the actual arithmetic mean, which is 14. So that is 14.191. Okay. Let me recall these steps. We first find the arithmetic mean with our usual way, that is, we first find the product of x and f, then we find the sum and divide it by summation of f. That's our arithmetic mean, which is here 14. Then we take the variation. Let's go step by step. To use the formula, we will have to gradually build it to that level. So first what we do is, in the next column we take the variation of the individual data from the actual mean. So in the first case it will be 10 minus 14, which is minus 4, then 11 minus 14 again is minus 3, and so on. Then we square these quantities. So the square of minus 4 is 16, minus 3 is 9, minus 2 is 4, and so on till 4, which is again 16. Then we find the product of the square of these deviations from the frequency. That is, we multiply the frequency, the value in the column of frequency column, from this. So it will be 16 into 2, which is 32, 9 into 7, which is 63, 4 into 10, which is 40, and so on. Now we find the sum of this, sum of the product of frequency and the square of the deviation. That happens to be 300. Divide that by your frequency, sum of the frequency, you get the variance. Take the positive square root of that, you get the standard deviation. Divide the standard deviation value with the arithmetic mean and multiply by 100, you get the coefficient of variation. Okay, so this is the working of the first form of the formula. Now let's take the same problem and try solving it using the second form of the formula. So again, to use that, we need to first find the mean, which is x, the product of x into f. Let me take that from the previous cell. The working is same for this. Yeah, we do the same steps. We first find the arithmetic mean and we know that that is 14. Then what we need to do, if you go back to the formula, we have the mean of squares minus square of mean. Always remember this and it will be easy for you to use this form of the formula. So mean of square, what we do is we first square the individual data, then we multiply it by the frequency and divide by n, and here we find the arithmetic mean. Whatever is the mean which we have already found, we'll simply square it. Okay, in fact, we can write this as summation fi xi square by n minus the arithmetic mean square. Okay, so all we need to do is take the squares of individual data. So just raise the values of the individual data to 2, we get the square of the values here. Okay, and then multiply this with the frequency, that is f, so you'll have f multiplied by x square, x raised to 2. Okay, so that will be the value here multiplied by the value in this column. Here we have, and then take the sum of that. Yeah, so the sum, now this is your sum of the squares. Then we need to find the mean of square, and that will be simply the value here divided by the capital N, which is the sum of the frequency. Okay, so this is the mean of squares. Let me write that here. Mean of squares. And what is the square of mean? We have mean here, which is 14, so the square of mean would be the value here raised to power 2. This is square of the mean. Okay, and then to find the variance, what we do exactly, it's simply mean of squares minus square of means, so that will be the value here minus the value here, and here we have the mean, the variance. Getting standard deviation from variance is trivial. It's simply the square root of the above quantity, and that's the standard deviation. Finding the coefficient of variation again is simple. We take the standard deviation, multiply it by 100 and divide it by the actual mean, and here we have the coefficient of variation. Okay, so really simple working. Now if you look at both these form of the formula, you see that the first one has, you have to till here, till finding the arithmetic mean, the steps are the same. Thereafter, for the first set of formula you have 3 columns, and for the second set of formula you just have 2 columns to build. Okay, so this is the working when we have frequency table. What in case if we have frequency table with class intervals, that is grouped frequency table? It's again the same, but in case you want to practice, you can take up a question and work it out. Yeah, here we have a question where you have the age classified into 6 groups and then the number of person in each of these groups mentioned. The working is again the same. First you need to find the mid values of these groups, which will be your x, and then it will be in the form of x multiplied by f. You know how to get the average, you know how to find the standard deviation thereafter. So pause me for a while and solve this yourself. Alright, so let's do it together. You have the x values here, which is the mid value of this. Now mid value of 20 to 25 should be 22.5. So I'll have 22.5 here. Next would be 27.5, 32.5, 37.5, 42.5 and 47.5. So these are my x values, and here the number of person, I can call them as my f. So I have my f and x. Let's use the second form of the formula, or let's first find out the arithmetic mean of this. So to find arithmetic mean, I need x multiplied by f. That simply will be x multiplied by f. I have the product of x and f. Let me find the sum of this column. This is the sum. Also I need the sum of the frequency to get my n value, which is 480. So my arithmetic mean in this case would be this value divided by this. Okay, so now my arithmetic mean here is 30.2083. Yeah, so now if you recall, this is decimal, and as I said previously that when your central tendency value happens to be a decimal, it would be more convenient to use the second form of the formula instead of the first one. So let's do that using the second form of the formula. For that I need to find the squares of these x. So I'll have x raised to power 2 here, okay. So these are the squares of the values of x, and then I'll multiply them with f. So if f multiplied by the squares of x, so the value here will be this multiplied by the frequency values. These are bigger numbers, and as far as we are doing it on an Excel sheet or using calculator, it's fine, but when we are working it using paper and pen, it'll be really inconvenient to find the square of these numbers, and so in those cases we will use the shortcut method, which we shall take up in the next session. For now, we've got the product of f and x square. What I need to do next is find the sum of this. So the sum would be this, and then I need to find the mean of squares. I have the squares here. I need to find the mean of squares, and that will be simply this value divided by the sum of the frequency. So the mean of squares here is 975.521, and the square of means, we have the arithmetic mean here. The square of this would be 912. So my variance, let me write that here first. This is your mean of squares, and this is your squares of mean. Yeah. Next I need to find my standard deviation, going through this path of first finding the variance. Variance simply is the difference between square of means minus mean of squares minus square of means. So that's my variance. To find this standard deviation, I simply need to take the square root of this quantity. So my standard deviation is this, and then coefficient of variation is simply this value multiplied by 100 and divided by the actual mean. So here this is the coefficient of variation. Okay, so well, by now you must have understood the working of all these problems using both the formula. As I said that there could be difficulty in solving this problem if we are doing it using paper and pen. Therefore, to make it simple in those cases, we shall take up the shortcut method in the subsequent video. Keep watching edupediaworld.com. Thank you.